Hey there, what's going on everybody? It's Star. The time is finally here for me to make this video about the turtles. I am so excited to talk about them, the designs that I have decided to go with, as well as the rewrites for most of their personalities and how they interact with some of their characters. If you haven't seen my last video on the humans, please go and check it out. It was a very fun video to make. And it seemed to have been really well received. So I am back finally making another one. I haven't had the motivation to continue doing this for a while, but I decided to finally bring it back around town. So I really do hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it. So first we have my favorite turtle ever, Donatello. I had to draw him first. And basically I was going off of my previous designs to see what I could possibly improve first when it came to doing this second redesign. And one of the main things that I did when I made Donatello the first time was I made him really pale, I made him really skinny, and my whole thing was that he was kind of sickly. And that was definitely a choice that I decided to make. I think the whole thing with me doing that back then was that I was following a couple of Heyyoo's and like rewrites that I had seen previously that were on that tip of, oh, you know, Donnie doesn't eat properly, he's kind of malnourished, he's always in his lab, that type of deal when it came to designing him. And I like that idea a lot for some reason, so I was really doubling down on that. But I don't really like the sound of that anymore. First of all, I'm making Donnie his proper colors. I'm not making him super light or anything like that. I'm making him just the normal colors. I think I was trying to differentiate the type of turtles that they are, because I like the idea of all of them being, you know, a different type of turtle. But I'm keeping Donnie in a different light this time. I'm being a little bit better about this design. The design thing that I do like is the goggles part, about him constantly wearing goggles. I think that's pretty adorable, and I like how Rise did it. I like how Rise had Donnie wearing goggles a lot in his design. I really enjoy that idea, so I wanted to keep that. I also wanted to keep the idea of Donnie wearing some type of gloves and some type of like pads, like, you know, shoulder pads too, as well as the knee pads that he already wears, just because I think he is more concerned about safety, just because of the logical aspect of it all, because he is smart. And I also like the idea of him being like the medic of the team. I like to think that he has a lot of knowledge about bodily anatomy and about things that can make people ill, and about what type of injuries that could happen that could really cause some lethal damage, and he just is really knowledgeable about that. So I like to imagine that he, you know, is a medic and he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to things like that, instead of just like scientific chemistry type of knowledge. Also, I think that Donnie is very interested in human activity and human objects and stuff like that. So he brings around a lot of books, his composition book, his journal, so that he can write about what he sees and so that he can study about it later, as well as take pictures of stuff. I feel like April has given him a camera so that he can take pictures of stuff that interests him so he can study it later. Hence why the Polaroid is there. Now, as for his relationship with April, I do like the idea of that ship. I think it's cute, and I think that it makes sense that somebody who has never been above ground before and never seen a human girl in his life starts freaking out and is super attracted to the first one that he sees that is kind of pretty. But I think that his obsession with April is a bit too much and kind of creepy the way that they address it. So I think that their, you know, relationship is more casual and still cute, and you know, to keep the cutesy aspects of it, and that they are really close friends even if they can't date. And I like to think that he's still friends with Fugitoid. I like their relationship during the space arc. The space arc is my favorite arc, by the way. And I like to think that they still communicate with each other, just like how Mikey still communicates with Renette and Raph still communicates with Mona. I do think that Donnie should have a separate friend of his own, like everybody else does. Now, the next one that we have here is Raphael. Now, Raphael is a little bit interesting person to think about, to write about, and to draw. The first thing that I wanted to go back to was how he was a little bit more beefed up than everybody else, how he has a little bit more of a boxy appearance. But I think I made him a little bit too wide in the previous design, so I just wanted to kind of shrink him back down to kind of normal sizes. But I do like the idea of him being boxy and just everything about him being more square because of his aggressive nature and because of how much more that he works out. I think that that makes sense. I wanted to add in more scars on like his hands and like his upper body than his lower body, because I feel like that he fights with his hands a lot and that he dodges with his hands a lot as well. I like to think that a lot of his combat is focused on hands due to, you know, the type of weapons that he has. They're smaller and he's a lot more into closer combat. So I like the idea of more scars being on his hands and his knuckles and stuff like that. I also like the idea of him not being too concerned with protecting himself or covering his skin or anything like that, like how some of the other turtles or the other humans might be concerned about it. And he just, you know, goes in guns blazing. Like, I think I like that, you know, aspect of his character. That being said, I don't think Raph carries around that many items when he goes on patrol or anything like that. If anything, all he's going to carry around is like his phone, his headphones, so that he can, you know, not really be tuned in and to just listen to whatever he wants. A water bottle and like some snacks and maybe like a Band-Aid or two, just so that Leo, you know, won't be concerned about it at all, because we all know Leo be nagging in people's ears. So, you know, like I said, he doesn't really actually care about, you know, protecting himself or covering his skin or anything like that. He's just doing it so that nobody will, you know, talk to him about it. Now, as for the rewrite of Raph, so in the 2012 version, in the way that they wrote Raph, he is extremely aggressive and he does all these things that hurt people and hurt his relationships with other people. And then he just never learns from his mistakes, and he keeps doing the same exact thing over and over again, despite going through all this stuff and supposedly, quote unquote, learning all these lessons. Has anybody noticed that? He goes through all this stuff and he hurts people multiple times, and he keeps saying, oh, I'm going to be better, I'm never going to do this thing again, because he's so worried about his brothers getting hurt and it being all his fault or whatever. And then he doesn't change. Everything stays the exact same. So I like to think that every time he does something that hurts somebody, he gets a little bit more aware and calms down at least a little bit more and actually works on his anger issues. And I also like to think that once he met his girlfriend, that he started sort of changing as a person and becoming a more soft and approachable person. I'm not trying to take away his toughness or his hardness, because that gives him his character, and I like that a lot about him, I really do. But I do like to think that, you know, he actually does develop his character, even though he's still a teenager. I like to think that he does still learn from his mistakes, and, you know, things actually develop for him, instead of, you know, the way that they really showed his development was in the future episode where he was an adult, and that's when he was sort of more mellow and more quiet and stuff. You know, now that his brothers pretty much weren't around and presumed dead at the time, he, you know, had completely mellowed out and just wasn't really screaming or anything like that anymore. He was just, you know, calm, which is fine. Like, I do like the idea of that too, but I like to think that, you know, he did develop that type of character in his teenage years as well, not just after everybody in his life has, you know, disappeared. Also, we all know that Raph likes to hang out with Mikey a lot. Like, I like to see Mikey and Raph just hanging out, just the two of them. I do find that really cute, but let's be honest, I really do think that he just hangs around Casey a lot, and that they, you know, they have so much in common when it comes to their, you know, character, and when it comes to how they fight, and when it comes to how they, you know, take care of each other. I think that he just sort of hangs around Casey a lot more than anybody else, excluding his girlfriend, of course.
Now, next up we have Leonardo, and let me tell you right now, oh, I've been waiting to talk about this guy, because the way that they wrote him in 2012 pisses me off. But before we get into that, let me calm down. Before we get into that, let's talk about some of Leo's design choices. So I took a lot of inspiration from how Rise Leo looks, because I like the gloves that he is wearing, and I like the little red spikes that he has over top of his eyes. I also like to think that he takes a lot of inspiration from Karai, because Karai also has those little red spiky things on her makeup on top of her eyes. I like the idea that a lot of Leo's scars are nearby his face. I feel like he takes a lot of blows to the face and he doesn't really care about how many blows that he takes to the face. I also wanted to put the little scars from when Shredder had sliced him across his chest in season, what was that, 2? When the Krang invasion happened, they were leaving to go to April's farm, and he was out for 3 months. Yeah, that scar, because I actually saw an artist draw that scar. If I could find the picture, then I would throw it up on screen. I extremely like that idea. That was an amazing thought, so I wanted to implement that in as well. Okay, now we can get on to the rewrite for Leonardo. So first and foremost, I want to say I'm extremely disappointed because the way that they wrote Leo in the first 2 seasons, phenomenal. Absolutely cooked with how they wrote him. You know, in the first season, he didn't know how to be a leader, so he was just, you know, taking inspiration from what he saw on TV, so he wasn't making that many good decisions. And then in the second season, a lot more stuff was on the line, so he was getting more serious and he was doubling down and he was acting like a real hero, and it was awesome, it was cool, and everybody was looking up to him, and it was amazing. And then in season 3, from then on, it was just went straight downhill. He started becoming a hard ass. He started trying to boss everybody around. He started trying to be completely independent from everybody else, and I cannot tell you why he started trying to do that. I don't know if it was because he was trying to protect everybody, quote unquote, but he just completely kept abandoning everybody. And of course, I already talked about this in the last video, just the blatant incest that was going on. His relationship with Karai, absolutely weird and disgusting. I don't like it. You know, I understand the taboo of, oh, I have a crush on a villain and she has a crush on me and we're chasing each other around and stuff. And I thought that was interesting. But when you introduced the fact that she was his sister and they were still flirting with each other, nope, get out. I don't appreciate that. That was weird. So, you know, from what I've said so far, we're just going to pretend that none of that ever happened. And what we're going to do instead is that Leo was, you know, just very protective of his newfound sister and that they became very close friends and that he led her in a better direction and that he was a good leader, especially after Splinter died. And he really became just a huge source of guidance and leadership for everybody, and that, you know, he mellowed out a lot and was really focused on just, you know, being a good leader. Finally, we have Mikey, who is the shortest SpeedPaint out of them all, but the one that I struggle with the most. So basically, first of all, I could not get his face right. I don't know what it was about his head shape and his eyes and mouth, but it just did not look like my style at all at first, and I had to redo it like several times. Second of all, I made him way too short. I was trying to make him, you know, seem younger like how he is in the show, and I was trying to showcase that, but I didn't mean to make him look like a toddler. So the point was that I was trying to be more subtle with how young Mikey looked and acted, because that's how they kind of did it in the show. I didn't want to be super in your face about how young Mikey is, but I wanted to, you know, do it in a more casual, subtle way. I also wanted to follow the Rise design. Again, I took from Rise Mikey, and I like the idea of the smiley faces on his knee pads and his, you know, elbow pads. I also still wanted to add stickers somewhere on him. I liked the idea for my last design, but I didn't do it, you know, quite properly, so I wanted to still put it in there and do it again. I also wanted to touch on Mikey's fascination with human clothes somewhere in the design. I really wanted to, but I could not figure out how to do it and make it actually look right and cohesive with the rest of the design, so I ended up scrapping it. As for Mikey's rewrite, I just love how the writers, you know, touched on Mikey actually being smarter than, you know, he lets on, and him actually having a lot more skill and a lot more intelligence than everybody else in the group, even Donnie. But, you know, nobody acknowledges that properly, and everybody still treats him like a dunce. And also, I know this might sound pretty dramatic, but I, you know, don't think that it's cool that they basically just abuse Mikey in the show. You know, people knock him around a lot and, you know, only really act like they care about him when he's about to freaking die. And, you know, just completely and utterly bully him. And I know that might seem dramatic or whatever, but, like, it just is weird to me. So I like to imagine that Mikey's intelligence is looked upon way more seriously, and people depend on him for, you know, a lot more things. And, you know, people acknowledge his intelligence more in the show, and he is able to use his skill and his intelligence a whole lot more. I also would like to think that people treat Mikey a little bit more normally. Like, it's okay to push your little brother around a little bit. I mean, that's what siblings do. Trust me, I have a brother, I know. But, you know, I think it was a little bit much the way that they did it. I think they milked that a lot in the show, and that they just didn't have to. So I like to imagine that that the behavior is just a lot more normal than how they portrayed it. And finally, we've made it to the end. These are all the turtles, guys. This took way too long. I'm sorry. I didn't have the motivation to even finish it half of the time, but I really still wanted to. There's been a lot going on, but I'm so glad that I finally got it out, and I really hope that you guys enjoy. Let me know if there's anything I could have improved on, and let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my takes in this video. I don't mean to piss anybody off, even though I don't know how easy it's going to be to piss somebody off in a pretty much dead fandom. But I, you know, still love these guys, and it's all coming from a place of love anyway. I just really wish that there was better decisions made for the show, because it was a good show, a good concept, good cast. I'm just, you know, upset about some of the decisions that were made about the show, because it could have been so much better. But anyway, again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.